JBN, we keep you informed. I am Michelle Jones, and in the news, two security guards found shot to death in St. Andrew. Two security guards were found dead with gunshot wounds at the premises of China Harbour Engineering Company, CHEC, in the 6 Miles, St. Andrew area on Monday morning. Another security guard was reported missing. Police report that explosions were heard in the vicinity of the CHEC premises sometime after 11 p.m. on Sunday. A search was conducted of the area, and two security officers were found shot to death. One of them was found in a car trunk, while the other was found in bushes on the compound. Deputy Superintendent Coleridge Minter, who is the operations officer for the St. Andrew South Police Division, has since reported that the security guard has been found alive and is not being treated as a suspect at this time. DSP Minter said the guard is very shocked and also very concerned about what took place. Not only him, but even some of the other officers who turned up at the location, fellow co-workers were very traumatized. Many of them have expressed not only shock but grief that no doubt will need some amount of counseling, he said. Minter said the security guard reported that he ran away from the incident. The deceased security guards have been identified as Brandon Tristan Small, 22, of Horizon Park, St. Catherine, and Lincoln Royal of Brownsall, St. Catherine. The men were employed by a GYD security company. Information received is that a grey-looking station wagon motor car drove to the entrance of the facility and was let in by a Royal. 4 masked men, armed with handguns, reportedly alighted from the vehicle and made their way over to a section of the compound where Small was seated under a gazebo. Several explosions were heard shortly afterwards. The hoodlums later escaped in the motor car in which they arrived. It is understood that police were summoned to the compound and found Small lying on the ground in blood outside the gazebo. He was rushed to the Kingston Public Hospital by the police, where he succumbed to his injuries. Following a further check of the compound, Royal's body was found in the trunk of a Nissan motor car that he drove, with his hands and feet bound and his service firearm missing. Manchester robbery suspect found dead in Clarendon. Police have confirmed that a suspect who was shot by a licensed farm holder during last Wednesday's armed robbery spree in Cross Keys, South Manchester, was found dead in Clarendon. A police source said that the man's body was found in southern Clarendon. Detectives theorize that the man's body was dumped by his cronies following the robbery of a gas station, bar, lottery outlet and restaurant in Cross Keys. During that robbery, a licensed farm holder challenged a group of gunmen, one of which was shot and injured before fleeing the area. The licensed farm holder was also shot and taken to hospital for treatment. Police are relying on scientific evidence as they follow leads into a series of robberies in Manchester last week. On Thursday, head of the Manchester Police, Superintendent Shane McCullough, said 2 suspects were arrested and an illegal gun seized during an interception of a motor vehicle by an anti-robbery task force in Osborne Store, Clarendon. The suspects are reportedly linked to robberies in Cross Keys and Knockpatrick. St. Mary teen killed in stabbing. A 17-year-old boy is dead after he was stabbed during a fight Sunday on Paggy Beach in Port Maria, St. Mary. He has been identified as Roshane Scott of Cox Street in the parish. The police suspect is in custody. It's reported that about 4 o'clock, Scott and other young people were playing football on the beach. An argument developed between the teenager and another person, which led to a fight. Scott was stabbed in the chest. He was pronounced dead at hospital. Resident George Byfield said the wounded teen, who he saw with blood oozing from his shirt, collapsed near his house. 19-year-old killed while attempting to cross road in St. James. A St. Ann teenager died from injuries he sustained after he was hit by a motor truck along the roadway in Lilliput, St. James on Monday morning. He has been identified as 19-year-old Sean Williams of Retirement District in Brownstown, St. Ann. The police say about 1 a.m. on Monday, the driver of a Toyota motor truck was traveling along a section of the Lilliput Main Road when he hit Williams, who was attempting to cross the roadway. The driver went to the Falmouth police station where he reported the collision. Following investigation, the police discovered the teen who had sustained injuries. He was pronounced dead at hospital. 4 hospitalized after a vehicle runs over a man's body in St. James. 4 people have been treated at the Cornwall Regional Hospital for injuries they received after the vehicle in which they were travelling ran over the body of a man along the Lilliput Main Road in St. James on Sunday night. The deceased has been identified as 38-year-old Linval Griffiths, whose address is not yet known. The Barrytown police say about 9:30 p.m. the driver of a white Toyota Mark X motor car and 3 male passengers were travelling along the roadway towards Falmouth. On reaching a section of the road, the driver allegedly lost control of the vehicle after he ran over Griffiths' body. The car ran off the road, colliding into a large tree and a shop before coming to a stop. The police were summoned, and all 4 occupants of the vehicle were rushed to the hospital where they were admitted. The scene was processed, and Griffiths' body removed to the morgue for autopsy. Investigators have indicated that Griffiths may have been the victim of a hit-and-run accident. Bloody weekend on the roads. It was a bloody weekend on the nation's roads as at least 9 people were killed in crashes. On Saturday, 24-year-old Dahomey Ford of Gimimibit, Clarendon, was killed in a vehicle collision along the Milk River Main Road in the parish. Reports are that about 1:30 p.m, Ford was driving a motorcycle along the roadway towards Yorktown in the parish when the motorcycle collided with a Toyota Probox motor car that was traveling in the opposite direction. Ford was thrown from the motorcycle and sustained several injuries. The driver of the motor car, a woman, was also injured. Ford was taken to the hospital where he died while being treated. Then on Sunday, 8 people were killed in 4 crashes in Kingston, St. Elizabeth and St. James. On the Palisades Main Road in Kingston, 4 people were killed when a Toyota Prado Land Cruiser and a Toyota Probox collided. The deceased were traveling in the Probox. They have been identified as 54-year-old Rose Roberts Banton, 18-year-old Zachary Eslop, 53-year-old Delroy Grant, the taxi operator, and Camille Grant. 2 persons in the Prado were taken to hospital. The crash took place about 6:30 a.m. In St. Elizabeth. A teen was reportedly killed when the Nissan motor vehicle was driving along the Gilnock Main Road near Santa Cruz collided with a Subaru heading in the opposite direction. That accident occurred about 12:05 a.m. Then about 3:30 a.m, a woman was reportedly killed when a Toyota motor car she was traveling in collided with a utility pole along the New Holland Main Road. There was also a double fatal collision in Lilliput, St. James last night. Curtis Stewart of Danieltown, Falmouth, Trelawney, and an unidentified male died in that accident. Between January 1 and December 11 this year, at least 448 people have died from more than 380 motor vehicle collisions. The Police's Corporate Communications Unit (CCU) has offered safety tips to motorists to assist them to avoid crashes. The CCU advised motorists to ensure that their vehicles are roadworthy and if any defects are observed, to call their mechanics immediately. The police also cautioned motorists, including motorcyclists and pillions, to wear protective gear, including safety helmets. The unit advised motorists to cut their speed, as this is one of the leading causes of fatal collisions, to be extra careful during bad weather, to practice defensive driving and avoid distractions, including the use of cell phones, and to abstain from drinking alcohol and driving. SSP Anthony Castell loses appeal of unlawful wounding conviction. Senior Superintendent of Police Anthony Castell has lost his appeal against his conviction in 2018 for unlawful wounding. He was charged following a 2016 incident in St. James in which shots were fired, injuring Janice Hines, who was a passenger in a taxi in which the driver had disobeyed a police signal to stop. Castell was fined $1 million for unlawful wounding or 30 days imprisonment and was admonished and discharged after he was found guilty of misconduct in public office. He joined the force in 1980 and was set to retire this year. One of the grounds of the appeal was that the Independent Commission of Investigations Indicom carried out the probe as well as the arrest and charge of the appellant, and that Indicom and its officers had no authority to arrest and charge anyone. Attorney at law Hugh Weltman, who represented Castell, argued that the United Kingdom Privy Council, Jamaica's final court, had ruled in a previous case that under the provisions of the Indicom Act, Indicom did not have the power to arrest and charge anyone during the course of its investigations. He argued that this was because Indicom was purely an investigative body and must turn over the fruits of its investigations to the Director of Public Prosecutions to determine whether criminal charges should be preferred. Wildman said the ruling was made by the Privy Council in the Jamaican case of the Commission of Indicom and the Police Federation and others. Wildman asked the Court of Appeal to find that Castell's trial was a nullity. The Crown conceded that Indicom and its officers did not have the legal authority to lay charges against Castell. However, prosecutors Janek Forbes, Astel Steele and Charles Smith argued that the trial could only be considered a nullity where no order of indictment was granted or signed by the parish judge, which was not the situation in Castell's case. It is common ground between the parties that the Indicom case has decided with finality that Indicom does not have the power to prosecute an offence which had been the subject of an investigation by Indicom, referred to as an incident offence, the court said. The court, in handing down its decision last week Friday, said the paramount issue in the case was whether the parish court judge had jurisdiction to make and endorse the order for trial of the appellant on an indictment in circumstances where the information on which the appellant had been brought before the court was not properly laid. It was the court's finding that the commencement of proceedings by the Indicom officer had no continuing significance after the parish judge signed the order for indictment. Wildman had also argued that there was inadequate evidence to support the convictions and the no-case submission should have been upheld by the parish judge, but the court said it did not find that to be so. The court said of significance was the fact that there was evidence that the appellant was the only person known to have discharged his firearm, a fact he admitted. The court said there was sufficient evidence of multiple projectile strikes with a motor car and bullet fragments found inside. Reference was made by the court to the findings of the government's ballistics expert that a fragment of a metal jacket from a fired bullet was discharged from the barrel of a firearm of a similar class to the firearm which the appellant had discharged on the day of the incident. The court said that although Castell asserted in his unsworn statement that he fired warning shots in the air, it was open to the then parish judge, Natalie Hart-Hines, to have found that he, at least, recklessly discharged his firearm and to infer that Hines was injured by a bullet that had been discharged from Castell's firearm. Having found that the appellant was guilty of unlawful wounding, the learned parish court judge was entitled to also find on that evidence, as she did, that by discharging his firearm 5 times, when, as he admitted in his unsworn statement, the thoroughfare was busy with pedestrians and motorists, he had committed the offence of misconduct in public office, the court ruled. Castell's conviction stemmed from an incident on January 22, 2016, in which taxi driver Lenford Grant, who was driving in Montego Bay with 6 passengers, was signalled by the police to stop. The driver disobeyed and was chased by Castell and the district constable in an unmarked service vehicle with siren blaring and bright flashing lights. During the chase, shots were fired and Hines, a pregnant woman who was sitting in the back of the taxi, was hit. Indicom had issued statements at the time of the incident, reminding the police of Section 103 of the Force Orders that firearms should not be discharged at a vehicle simply because it has failed to stop or to immobilize the vehicle. In addition, motorists were warned by Indicom to obey the lawful commands of police personnel engaged in enforcement duties. Public health inspectors upset there will be no retro pay for Christmas. Public health inspectors are disgruntled and unsettled after being told they will not receive retroactive salary payments in time for Christmas. The Jamaica Association of Public Health Inspectors stated in a media release on Monday that they were assured by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark that the sums would be received in their December salaries following the signing of the agreement for the new public sector compensation scheme. However, the association said it received a copy of a letter on Wednesday, December 7, which stated a payment schedule for February 2023. We are aggrieved by the payment schedule stated for February 2023 for public health inspectors. This goes contrary to us signing the MOU in good faith that the new salary with arrears from April 1, 2022 will be paid in December 2022, it said. It continued, "Our members are disgruntled and unsettled as everyone is in anticipation." It continued, "Our members are disgruntled and unsettled as everyone was in anticipation of a Merry Christmas." The association said it has appealed to the Minister of Finance and the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health and Wellness to do everything possible to facilitate payment to public health inspectors. In sports news, Bell bowls England women to opening win over Windies in T20 series. England women took a 1-0 lead in the 5-match T20 international series against the West Indies women when they registered an 8-wicket victory at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua. Senior all-rounder Chanel Henry said West Indies batting never got going and the low total was just not enough. To be 3-4 wickets down in the first 10 overs with no kinds of runs on the board, that is where we fell short. Since the ODI series, we have been struggling with the bat. We just have to pick ourselves up and keep going, she said. A couple of us got short partnerships going to get us to 100, but it wasn't enough. It was really good to see little Geneva Joseph standing up against Catherine Brunt, facing her head-on, and to have an under-19 player in our squad so fearless is a move in a good direction for us, she added. This series now moves to the Kensington Oval, where the teams will meet for the remaining 4 matches on December 14, 17, 18, and 22. All matches start at 6 p.m. Eastern Caribbean or 5 p.m. Jamaica time. JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.